Thanks for having me. This is Dr. Seokbeom Kim. So, today I'm gonna briefly talk about some general issues about measuring cybercrime, like a definition of a cybercrime, what kind of cybercrime data has been measured, and at what level has a cybercrime data has been collected, who is the victim of a cybercrime, how reliable is the cybercrime data. Then we will discuss about the metrics of cybercrime. So based on Uniform Crime Reports and the National Crime Victimization Survey, two important sources of crime data in the United States, a commonly accepted fact is that the rate of serious violent crime and property crime has shown a downward trend. As you can see in the graph, the South Korea also see a downward trend in offline crime. However, the official index crime rates has been criticized, failing to capture the reality of the crime directly or indirectly related to cyberspace. So with the development of ICT, criminals have an opportunity to change their modus operandi. Therefore, traditional offline crimes like fraud, stalking, and harassment evolved into the new form of cybercrime, even drug crimes. For example, according to the DEA in the United States, criminals use the dark web to sell illegal drugs over eBay-like illicit markets. These transactions are usually made using cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin. The ordered drugs are shipped via international packages. As a result, some experts warned about a new phase of opioid epidemic in the US. So another example is that the annual number of sensitive digital data breaches have surged, along with increasing financial losses incurred by such breaches. Again, the current official crime data did not capture these types of crime. Maybe little evidence exists so far about crime migration from offline to online. However, the lack of cybercrime data hinders our understanding of addressing the evolving nature of cybercrime. So generally, the importance of robust measurement and collection of cybercrime data is related to accurately defined crime problems. Also, we can inform and aware the public regarding their criminal victimization. From a law enforcement perspective, accurate cyber data can justify obtaining funding and resources to address cybercrime. The first is about the definition of cybercrime. Earlier, Dr. McGuire addressed this issue beautifully, so I make a very quick thinking about the definitions of cybercrime. So, as a former law enforcement, it is very difficult to establish a specific definition of a cybercrime. Cybercrime, computer crime, computer-enabled crime, all these terms are used interchangeably, but there is no settled definition of cybercrime. This makes a lot of confusion about law enforcement world. Therefore, the interpretation of cybercrime differ from academic or professional point of view and from country by country. So, as Dr. McGuire says, we need to more effort to establish the settled definition of cybercrime. The second issue is about what kind of cyber data we are collecting. In the United States, among the 52 NIVRS Group A offenses, so-called the most serious offenses, only one category listed under fraud offenses called hacking and computer invasion is only designated for cybercrime. In contrast, South Korea law enforcement maintained more detailed categorization and classification. Because it is very difficult to add or change crime category in the official data does not easily adapt to new cybercrimes such as ransomware or sextortion. In this regard, South Korea official data is more responsive to the current cybercrime trend. The victimization survey is an important tool for estimating cybercrime. Especially, it can measure unreported cybercrime, so-called hidden crime, and threat or risk of cybercrime. Also, due to the flexibility of the survey contents, it is possible to capture the current trend of cybercrime without any regulation. So we need to more focus on how to use the victimization survey to capture the current cybercrime trend. A second issue is about at what level has data been collected so far. In South Korea, victims of cybercrime voluntarily report their incidents to the police. This initial reporting consists of approximately 80% of entire received cybercrime cases in South Korea. After initial investigation, about 56% of received crime reports were classified as official crime. Therefore, local, regional, and national crime statistics can be collected through a centralized police system in South Korea. In contrast, in the US, there's a very little is known about the level of the data collection method in the US. In the US, local, regional, and national cybercrime statistics can be collected through NIVRS, but very limited to certain crime like hacking and the fraud crime, as mentioned earlier. In the US, the most important thing is that jurisdictional issues are the most difficult to solve. Many cybercrimes are committed out of state or internationally. Some states has broadened their jurisdiction rules, but it is very difficult to prosecute cybercrime criminals outside the state. So, for example, the total cybercrime handled by the Massachusetts Attorney General's office for the last 3 years is only 17 cases. This number was surprisingly low. These features hinder the understanding of the extent and the prevalence of cybercrime. The next issue of cybercrime is related to counting the occurrence of cybercrime. In 2017, the hacking incidents of Equifax, one of the 3 largest consumer credit reporting agencies in the US, exposed almost half of the American credentials like social security number, driver license number, and credit card number. The question arises from whether we should consider these data breaches as one incident or 147.9 million cases. Precisely who is the victim of data breach caused by hacking is very difficult to handle with. The crime occurrence rate largely depends on the method of counting. So we should delve into this type of counting issue more and more. The final issue is about the reality of the cybercrime data, reliability of the cybercrime data. As you can see in trend, the use of a smartphone and the number of forensic service requests seems to be correlated with each other. But the official cybercrime data in South Korea seems to be a little bit fluctuate year by year. This fluctuation might be related to the reporting system. As we already saw just before, the reported cybercrime was initially reviewed or consulted by a police officer. During this process, a substantial amount of reported cybercrime was excluded for the subsequent criminal investigation. So this, in the future, this kind of initial filtering process of the Korean police should be regulated by some kind of objective guidelines. Regarding US NIVRS, it is reported that only approximately 44% of local law enforcement joined the NIVRS system. Furthermore, FBI acknowledged that NIVRS is estimated to cover only 12% of cybercrime. When we interviewed a patrol officer in Massachusetts, they acknowledged that cybercrime like cyberstalking was not included in the crime data simply because there is no NIVRS code for cyberstalking. So the NIVRS system allows for coding when the crime takes place in cyberspace. Nevertheless, it is very difficult to detect a full range of cybercrime within NIVRS system. So we need to, regarding the measuring cybercrime, the need to define, categorize, and track cybercrime is imperative. We can consider to develop so-called index cybercrime to measure and compare cybercrime across countries. And it is necessary to consider a way of complementing cybercrime official data based on victimization survey so that each source of cybercrime can be used to solve problems that the other cannot. So thank you for listening to my presentation.